Hello all, welcome to NVTalks. In this series of NVTalks, we'll talk about interview experience of those who have faced it. When we are in the second year or third year of our graduation, we are often confused about how to apply for internships and how do we prepare for the upcoming interviews and what all projects should we work upon. We are afraid to lose any opportunities, especially at this point of time. And when we see our seniors getting placed, we often move towards them and seek for their guidance, which is actually the right choice because it is always advisable to learn from others' experience. So, with this, in this series of Navi Talks, we'll talk to those who have faced the interviews and cracked it. We'll discuss about their strategy to prepare for different rounds of interview. We'll talk about what was their strategy for the HR round, for aptitude round, for coding round, and we'll talk about their coding journey. How did they start it with competitive programming and how did they practice it? We will also talk about the projects which they made during their engineering and how those projects helped them to during their placements. With this, let me introduce you to the first guest of the series. So today we have with us the super girl Miss Sukriti Shah, who is currently in the final year of her graduation. She has already been placed at not just one but many companies including Athena Health, DXC Technogies, American Express and E.Shaw. She was one of the finalists for Girls Wanna Code conducted by Flipkart and also got selected for the Girlscript Summer of Code 2020. She is the chair of the ACM chapter at her college and always promoted the coding culture through various events. So without taking any more time, let's welcome her to the show. Welcome, ma'am.
Hi, Shatakshi.
Hi, how are you?
Thank you for your wonderful introduction. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, ma'am.
Yeah, I started with programming in college itself.
What do you think was the most important thing during the your BTech which you have done and that helped you to crack all these interviews? Which
That should coding be focused on data structures and algorithms, or should it be focused on competitive programming?
what are some of your suggestions for making a good resume?
Do not use a lot of fonts. Add your LinkedIn, GitHub, email ID, blog ID if you have, and if you have, like, put up your phone number over there. And HR interviewers do not want somebody who's speaking out a monotonous and robotic kind of an answer. They are looking out for a reason to hire you. Give them that reason. Be yourself. Be honest.
So now, after facing so many interviews and clearing the toughest ones of all, you have tons of experiences which are worth sharing. So shall we start with the interview?
Sure. Go ahead.
Okay. So questions I would like to ask you. The first question that is, how did you come to this field of computer science? Did you always wanted to be a software engineer, or was it like accidentally? It was not planned.
I wanted to be an engineer for sure. Like, whenever I thought of something as a profession, I knew that it would be engineering. But computer science and engineering was not something that I always looked up to. But eventually, in my scheme of things, computer science and engineering made its way. And it was an obvious choice because in like class 6th or 8th, I don't remember now, but I had developed a flair for web development. And so from then on, I knew that if at all I go in for this field, I'll be good to go. So I decided to go in for computer science and engineering, and I in the hindsight, I think I made a good choice.
Okay, so you are excited about the programming languages and programming from your school days.
No, not from my school days. I come from a completely non-CS background, and when I came to college in my first year, I was extremely worried at how am I going to go about it, because I had fellow classmates who had CS background. They had been doing coding for like 2 years back in their 11th and 12th. and they were really enthusiastic about computer science and engineering, and they would be talking about programming and coding. And I had no idea what is going on, because I had no idea what is C, what is C++, and what is Java. And a lot of times, they used to say that, I know C++ and I know Java, and one day I happened to, actually open up my curriculum and see where do we actually, start to study C++ and Java. And I realized, oh my God, it's going to come 1 year down the line in our BTech curriculum. So at that point of time, I was worried, but there was one relief. Like in the first year, we do not have a lot of CS subjects. So at that point of time, I knew that I have 1 year. Like we have one CS subject in each of the semesters, so I'd be good to go and I can match up to them. So yeah.
Okay, so you started with the programming in college itself.
Yeah, I started with programming in college itself. Before that, I had done a little bit of web development, but I think web development is pretty easier as compared to where we start computer science from. And the kind of web development I had done at that point of time was elementary.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. So the next question is, what do you think was the most important thing during the your BTech which you have done and that helped you to crack all these interview, which like most of the people miss or they realize at the last moment that we must have done this or to get better offers at the time of placements.
I think, when we are in a BTech degree for computer science and engineering, at that point of time, we are actually following a curriculum that is given to us, and we tend to follow the curriculum. But I personally feel that apart from that, what one needs to stress on for interviews is coding. When I talk about coding, there are usually two questions that people have in their mind: that should coding be focused on data structures and algorithms, or should it be focused on competitive programming? And if I were to elaborate the difference between them, basically, when we talk about competitive programming, it is on portals wherein you engage in competitive competitions which are going on over there. Like, for example, Coach Chef has monthly contests, and over there people go and compete. That is why it is known as competitive programming. Secondly, with competitive programming, we are given problems which are designed in a way wherein we have a lot of constraints added to it, and if we are not able to actually solve the question within those constraints, then we would not be able to, pass all the test cases. But when I talk about data structures and algorithms, then in data structures and algorithms, we have this flexibility that we can come up with various approaches which are our own. And even if I do not get to the most optimized approach, at least I can get to a runnable code. So yeah, I mean, I think these two things are important. But for anything, you need to have a good understanding of your programming language, whichever language you wish to code in. I don't think programming languages as such make a difference. You can go with C++, Java, or Python, or if any other programming language would also do. So I think that's one thing. Apart from that, I think once you're done with your programming language part, you should actually go in for data structures and algorithm. And I think data structures and algorithms is something which most of the companies focus on. And they tend to ask a lot of questions from this. I think 80 to 90% of the process for a fresher in any of the interviews comprises of data structures and algorithms. So you need to have a good understanding of it. You need to know how to implement it, and you need to know where to implement it. Like, for example, you do not get a direct question like implement a stack or implement a queue, but you need to know wherein in a question I can actually apply a stack, or wherein in a question I can actually apply a queue. And of course, you need to understand what is time complexity and get to the most optimized solution. Then, talking about competitive programming, I feel competitive programming helps you in gaining an extra edge over others by improvising on your speed. So that is important from that perspective. Secondly, the kind of questions you get on competitive programming platforms help you build your logical skills and not just go in and implement the standardized algorithms and data structures that are out there, but also apply those in real life scenarios, because most of the questions in a competitive programming competition or a site that you either practice or participate in are based on real life situations or they're simulations of real life situations. So that's what I feel. These two things are important. And third thing, I would say, have some decent projects. When I talk about some, like I had just two main projects on my resume.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have two decent projects throughout your BTech, that would be enough for you to sit down in an interview. So, projects is something that I personally think that when you put down projects,
Mm-hmm.
when you put down projects in your resume, the interview usually does not have a lot of time to touch upon all your projects. So it does not make sense for you to, put up 4 or 5 projects, because eventually he or she would not be covering the rest of the 3 or 4 projects that you have put on additionally. He or she would be able to, talk about 1 or 2 of your projects. So having two good, decent projects would be good to go. So people tend to invest a lot of time in their projects and they try and build a lot of projects. I think that
Mm-hmm.
is something wherein you can save your time and you can devote your time to coding and practicing on various competitive programming sites.
Okay, so first key is we should have a good command over the programming language, and second
Sure.
on the data structures. Third is the application of data structure where we should use the appropriate data structures, and the fourth comes that we should not spend a lot of time on our projects.
You should spend on 1 or 2 projects,
Spend a
but
lot of
not
time,
like,
we should not make
yeah.
multiple projects. Rather, we should make one good project.
Yeah,
Okay.
actually this is something which works if you're going in for product based companies. Like if you are interested more on the development end, then I would say you should go in for startups, because startups are actually looking out for people who are more inclined towards development. So if you as an individual, as a computer science graduate, feel that you're more inclined towards development and you do not feel inclined towards coding, then in that case you can adopt the other strategy. But what I did was I focused more on coding, less on projects. But the projects that I created, I knew in and out, like what is there in my project, how it is working. So that worked for me.
Okay, have a decent idea about what is there in our project, and the project must be original, right? We should.
True. That's something which is extremely important.
Okay, so like for competitive programming, how did you started with it? Like you learned the languages, you learned the data structure. From where did you start practicing? You directly moved on to the platforms, the HackerRank, CodeShip, and all others, or
No, actually not. Actually, in my case, since I was coming from a non CS background, and I eventually started off coding along with what was being taught in my college. So at that point of
hmm.
time, whatever programs were being given, I just used to execute them. But eventually, I started reading books related to coding. So I followed C++ and Java standard books, like which were already there in the market, like Bala Guru Swami and books like that.
Hmm.
So I developed an understanding which I feel that somewhat helped me in building my basics very strong. So I had my basics in place, and once I had my basics in place, I was in a situation to easily apply them. So at that point of time, some of my seniors suggested that if you're starting off with coding, then you should go in for HackerRank. And I started coding with HackerRank. So I don't know what went wrong with me, because all the people along with me who were practicing on HackerRank, they were doing the C++ track over there. And I jumped into the problem solving track. That was probably, I don't know, I had no idea why I did that, but I started off with the problem solving stack. And when I started off with problem solving, so I realized a little later that I have dived into data structures and algorithms instead of going in for standard C++ applications. So I had a tough time solving questions on HackerRank as well initially. But then once data structures and algorithms was done, I think it became easier. Also, one thing I feel that a lot of people tend to ignore the importance of the labs that are there in place. They tend to copy the code from various websites out there. That is not going to
Mm-hmm.
help you have one full week. So, invest that time, work on your code, develop your basics. And if you're not comfortable with something, then go and consult it on YouTube or Quora or Stack Overflow. So these three websites were my go-to place. If I had any doubts at any point of time, I would go and refer over there. And I used to code it myself, no matter how long it took me. But I used to code it myself. I did not copy my codes. So that was one thing that helped me. But yes, had I had got proper guidance, I probably would have started off with coding from my first year, which I started off after my second year. Like my second year was done, and I started off with proper coding by the end of my second year. So I think I lost a lot of time over there. Like 2 years were gone. Now you have 2 years, and out of those 2 years, you have just 1 year before your placements.
Yeah.
And to be very honest, I missed my third year's internship because of that. Like, had
Yeah.
I had proper experience, I would have done a third year internship, because by the end of second year or in the beginning of third year, you get to see companies who are posting out vacancies for internships, 2 month
Mm-hmm.
internships, and I had no coding background. So that is why I missed on my internship at that point of time. But that 1 year that I had, I could do coding in that year. So that helped.
Okay, so as you said that you started coding in your college and you have not done the internships in second and third year. If I'm not wrong, in second year also you didn't went for the internship.
What I did was a development kind of an internship. Okay,
Okay.
and then I started to engage with a lot of communities via LinkedIn. So I had work experience in that form, but
Okay.
not in terms of a 2 month internship at a good company, like which I could basically convert to a full time offer or a PTO basically. So that wasn't something that was going on my side. But yeah, had I started coding earlier, I would have been in a better
So,
position.
like
That's
some of the people, they believe that if you want a decent company or a good offer after your fourth year, then you must start coding early and you must have done some internships at really good company. And if you are doing internships in good companies, then it will for sure give you a good offer. So these are the myths, I guess.
yeah, they are the myths. You can
It all
start
depends on your skills at the end.
Definitely. It just depends on your skills. No matter when you start, you need to get your basics right. You need to be confident about your skills, and you need to apply them. Do not like learn things up or mug them up. That's not going to help. Learn how to apply it and have an open mind through and through. I think having an open mind and grabbing all the opportunities that come your way and interacting with a lot of people out there in your domain would help you a lot. So that
Okay,
is
so after all, we are engineers, so we must apply and not just keep on learning.
true, true.
Okay, so okay, now we are done with competitive programming. So the next question, which comes to the mind of lot of people, is that uh, like if I'm not going on internships, then is it okay if I spend my time at home and making some project on my own? And learning some new skills or doing the competitive programming, but I guess internships are compulsory from the college side, that you must do internship in your third year.
No, actually, it wasn't the case. Like
Okay.
in third year, you get to have this option, wherein you can actually give a project. like you work on a project and complete a course, and
Hmm.
otherwise you can go in for an internship. In either
Okay.
of the cases, you get marks for that. Like industrial training seminar, if I talk about that, then you get
Hmm.
marks on whatever you present at that point of time, whether it is a course based project or whether it is an internship. So anything works, and whatever suits you the most, you should go in for that. I personally think that in my case, I had additional time of 2 months, like the summer vacation that I did not spend on an internship, but rather prepared for my placements. So in those 2 months, I could make use of that time. And those 2 months, you have that time as well wherein you're not going to college. So you have additional time. So, you can save time. Also, some of my seniors who had gone for internships, they told me that, once you go in for an internship, you have no time left after,
Yeah.
coming from work. So you tend to ignore your preparation, and 2 months of time ignoring your preparation just before your placements
Hmm.
costed them. So that was one advice that I took forward, and I took up work from home kind of internships, like wh- which had a limited amount of time requirement on my end. So I had an internship, I had done projects, I had done courses, and
Hmm.
rest of the time I used to dedicate to my placement preparation. So that's how I had designed it. But
Okay.
yeah,
That
I
was
mean, if
really
you are,
nice.
yeah,
Sorry.
but if you're able to get a good internship at a good company in your third year, do not miss that chance. Like in that case, try and work at that company properly and convert it to a full-time offer. That is something you should stress upon. And if at any point of time you feel that things are not going as you think they would, like turn in your favor, then
Hmm.
you need to put in some extra effort and continue your preparation. But if you're getting a good internship, it is not worth losing. But if you're getting an ordinary internship, it is not worth the time. That is what I feel.
Okay. And one more confusion that nowadays there is a boom of machine learning and artificial intelligence IoT. So everyone is trying their hands on these areas as well. And during the lockdown, the Coursera was free, so most of the people they have tried learning these things.
Yeah.
So, do you suggest that, how should we make it as a specialization while placement? Shall one like say that I am expert in machine learning or I want to work in this field, or at the times of placement after fourth year we should stick to this competitive programming and development, like everything.
What I'll tell you is, when I was around this time, and when I was seeking guidance at that point of time, I had a lot of people around me who were interested in machine learning, and they were doing machine learning like rigorously, you know.
Hmm.
And but I talked to a few seniors, and they suggested me that, as freshers, there aren't a lot of jobs for machine learning people. Like, companies do not hire a lot for machine learning or data science roles for freshers. So,
Hmm.
as freshers, you do not get a specialized job in this field. So, as long as you're pursuing machine learning, deep learning, data science, any of these fields, on a project level, it's okay. Even if you want to go further in that field, that's okay. You can keep it to yourself, but have this clarity in your mind that there
Hmm.
aren't a lot of machine learning and data science jobs out there. So, you will have to start up with a software engineer or a, SDE kind of a profile initially. And at that point of time, when you're going to sit for an interview, you would
Hmm.
need coding. You would need coding. Also, like, I had personal inclination towards web development, full stack web development. So
Hmm.
I did not pursue a lot of machine learning. I did one course in machine learning. I took basic ideas, and I did that course in my second year. I guess end of second year. I did that course at the end of my second year, Before that, I was doing web development. After that, I did web development. So I just kind of
Hmm.
explored it, that how machine learning is. So I was inclined towards web development. Secondly, recently, like if I talk about the people I have interacted with in the field, and on Twitter also, you would be able to find out that there are a lot of jobs in full stack web development, and a lot of companies are personally appreciating projects done in full stack web development, because when you're doing a web development project, you get to experience the complete development cycle. So, that
Hmm.
helps you when you're going in as a fresher. So, that is one point that I feel helped me. A lot of interviewers are comfortable discussing web development projects. But again, this is not a hard and fast rule that, if you do not have a web development project, you cannot get a job, or if you have a machine learning project, you cannot get a job. But
Hmm.
as a fresher, the companies that are going to come would require coding skills. So, as a fresher, it would be safe to invest more time in coding, less time
Okay.
in development.
Okay, so when we participate in hackathons, they are like expecting us to make the projects their own. So how to maintain the this balance between the competitive coding and hackathon? Like even if I talk about myself, I was doing coding, and when I went to the hackathon, the problem statement which they gave me, like I was blank. What can I do with this? I cannot develop a software or a website right here. So how should we like make the balance between learning this development and competitive coding? Because at the end, hackathons are also important, as many of the companies are recruiting based on them.
True. I would say devote 70% of your time, while on your weekdays, if you are devoting 3 hours, supposedly if you're devoting 3 hours on your weekdays, then devote 2 to 2.5 hours to coding, and half an hour to brush up your development skills, and on your weekends work on your development skills. That is something that I did. And otherwise, in general, if I were to generalize it, 70% of the time focus on coding, and 30% of the time focus on development. Because until and unless you are too inclined towards development, or you want to go in for a startup, you know, then in
Hmm.
that case, it's a good idea. But otherwise, most of the companies out there, even if they're offering a hackathon kind of a position to you, they're also having a coding kind of a, entry level entrance test. So, that is what I'm trying
Hmm.
to say. If they have been hiring via hackathons, they are also
Hmm.
hiring in another way, which is somewhat related to, or,
Coding.
via coding. So companies will be considering coding for another 2 to 3 years, I'm sure. So coding would help you more. Secondly, when we come across these openings wherein companies are hiring via hackathons, the percentage of people that they're hiring via hackathons is less.
Hmm.
They take up first 10 or first 15 people on an all India basis. So,
Hmm.
hackathons are important. I'm not saying neglect them. Work on that, but
Hmm.
devote 30 to 40% of your time to that. And remaining 60 to 70%, try and achieve speed and clarity of concepts. And you need to know the most optimized approach. Like if you were given a question, do not solve it for the sake of solving. Solve it keeping in mind the most optimized, what can be the most optimized solution to it. Can you reduce the complexity of this code further? So try and do that from that perspective. You might end up spending a more time on one single question rather than solving 10 questions, but that time is worth it.
Okay. So that will help to, like, if, although we'll take more time on one question, but in future that will definitely help uh, in some other
Yeah.
question.
And I would say, when you're going out for hackathons, do a lot of code reading in general. Like, a lot of people tend to post their codes on LinkedIn, like they put up the GitHub repo link on LinkedIn that I have created so and so project. So just go there and check once what
Okay.
kind of code they have put up. And like, sometimes we feel that this project that they have built would have some really big code. They would have put in hours of labor, and probably thousands of lines of code would be there, and it would be really difficult to make this. But eventually when you go and check out the GitHub repo, you get a fair idea that it is not that long you know
Hmm.
So try and develop those techniques and understand if somebody has made a project and that has been selected in some hackathon, or if they have achieved something, then how much amount of effort have they actually put. Also, a lot of hackathons have this process wherein some amount of code you have written prior to the hackathon, that is something which you can use. So that is
Hmm.
one thing. When you're doing things, so prepare your code modules properly and structures properly. That would help you.
Okay, and reading others' code, this will help in the open source contribution as well.
Yes, yes. So I was inclined towards open source a lot, through and through.
Yeah,
Like,
you got selected for the Google Summer of Code. So, like you started preparing for it from right from. I guess you got selected after your second year, right?
yeah, yeah.
You were preparing for it since your like second year. During your second year, you were preparing for that, and you started contributing to the open source right in your second year, or like after you got selected.
No, I was doing open source before that. So,
Okay.
I was doing open source like from a while now, because whenever I used to be coding as well, no. So at that point of time, I used to create codes, and I used to create them and structure them and comment them in such a way that I can put it up on my GitHub repo. So that's how I
Hmm.
started with GitHub, and eventually I dived into open source. So yeah, that's about it.
So the ultimate key is to get started. Like many of the people, they are confused how to begin with the open source and how to start contributing. So some of them are even confused about GitHub. So we should just start putting something and eventually we'll get comfortable with it.
Exactly. If you're doing even a small project, and it is uh it is an achievement for you, like as an individual. If you feel that you did not know how to create this, but you have created it now, and you
Hmm.
put it up on GitHub, it counts. Because eventually there would be some beginners out there who would take inspiration from those projects. So put things
Yeah.
out there, even if it is a small project, put it out there. It would help somebody, and
Right.
add to your GitHub repository.
Yeah, definitely. It will help us building our profile as well. So,
Yeah, true.
yeah. So, what is the significance of the minor and major project we make in college? Like, it is significant, but do the companies really ask about these projects, or uh, what do we made in our minor and major, and does this affect our selection in any company?
Look, like for the minor project, we have done 2 phases by now. Okay. We have
Hmm.
3 phases for our minor project, and major project is in the next semester. And by this time, I'm placed. So I am yet not
Yeah.
done with my minor project. I have, and my major project has not even been asked by my college so far. So minor and major projects is something which companies do not ask. I mean, none of the companies specifically asked me about my minor or major projects. What they asked me was that what kind of projects have you made while you
Okay.
were in your college, and how do you create projects? Was this an individual project or a group project? And then they dive into the technical aspect of the project, like what it is all about and how is it working, what is the schema. So that's about it. So nothing like minor and major project, as long as you have two decent projects which you can talk about at length and in detail with absolute clarity, there's no point like worrying about it.
Okay. Like when I gave the internship test, and like some of the companies, generally they have these two, three rounds: the HR round, the aptitude round, and coding. But nowadays, like Adobe that ask for the gaming round, and also like I believe all the companies, the big companies, they must be having these kind of rounds. So how do you prepare for this, or like this is natural, whatever happens instantly?
Like coming to aptitude, I'll talk about aptitude because, like, via college, we were getting aptitude training. So, we were getting third party training focused on aptitude. But eventually, I just realized that all the companies that I wish to apply for are not asking me aptitude. And even if they're asking aptitude, the level of questions is pretty basic. And the amount of practice I have is sufficient for me to crack their aptitude test. So I eventually left those third party training aptitude classes, but this is something which an individual needs to analyze first, like what is their level of uh,
And
you know understanding and practice. That that is something which comes down to self evaluation. But
Mhm.
most of the companies out there which are hiring based on aptitude, they are not offering a very good package. So if you're talking in terms of package, then they are not providing a very good package. But if you are looking for a decent package, there are a few companies like which tend to focus on aptitude a lot. But then, with the company aptitude questions, they are very basic. You would not need a calculator. You would not need a calculator. They would have very basic calculations. So, you need to develop speed. So, practice is the key. And I think you do not need to spend a lot of time. 1 hour for like 30 days, like 30 hours of preparation would be enough, more than enough.
Yeah,
So,
a quick revision of all the topics, the basic mathematics mostly.
yeah, exactly. It is absolutely basic and very simple, and you would not even need a calculator. So they're very simple and easy questions. As long as you have a basics clear, you're good to go. You do not need to invest your entire day, preparing for aptitude.
Like
It is
practice.
not, yeah, it is not going to help you in the long run like a lot.
Okay. So for aptitude, like a decent preparation is enough, and if we are practicing at the college, like if we are getting that third party training at our college, we should just practice a little bit more questions along with the training. That will be sufficient.
Yeah, true. That would be good to go.
Okay, so next question is, what are some of your suggestions for making a good resume? And what are the key points which we should keep in mind while giving a resume to a particular company for a role which they are asking for? What are the main areas that which we should keep in mind?
Firstly, I did not follow the format that was provided by any of the people in the college. I did not. So, like, I did not follow their format. What I did was I did my thing based on my research that I did on LinkedIn and the research that I came onto after interacting with a lot of people and reviewing a lot of resumes of people who were willing to share it with me. Then secondly, I think one of the most important facts is that when you're sending in your resume, please name your file properly with your name, the company you're applying, and mention it as your resume. Like, do not give absurd and weird names. Third point I would say
Mhm.
is do not use a lot of fonts. Try and keep it to one page. Two fonts would be good to go, one font for your heading and one font for the rest of the content. If you're describing your project, then try to do it in points, and 2 or 3 points about the project is enough. You do not need to elaborate your project because that is something what you will speak of.
Yeah,
uh, when,
definitely.
when you're talking about your project in your resume, mention your tech stack. If you have deployed your project, then provide the link. If you have not deployed your project and you have put the code on GitHub, then if you have space in that one page, then try and put the GitHub link for that project. If you do not have space to put the GitHub link, then in that case, at the top, anyways, you're mentioning your GitHub profile
Right.
URL. So, provide your LinkedIn, GitHub, email ID, blog ID if you have, and if you have, put up your phone number over there and your name. Do not include your photograph in your resume. They are hardly concerned with your photograph. If at any point of time a company wishes that you put up your photograph in your resume, then in that case, add it to add it, customize your resume according to your requirement, according to their requirement. But otherwise, do not waste your space with the photograph. Do not go in for designed resumes and colored resumes. Keep it black and white. Do not use underlines. Do not break your pages into sections. Instead, keep it simple. It should be a concise one page, full, completely filled with maximum information you can put. Do not put your education first. Firstly,
Hmm.
talk about your work experience, followed by your projects, followed by your extracurricular activities. Extracurricular activities, if you have taken up any leadership roles or you have worked in any community, put them up. What kind of work you have done, put that up. And then at the end, put up your education, like what college you went to, and then your schools if you have space. So that is how
Okay.
you should design it.
Okay, so after the aptitude, and we have talked a lot about coding, how to get started, how to crack these interviews. Now comes the HR round. So one general question which comes to my mind personally is that do we really need to prepare for HR round? Like the questions which they ask, like tell me something about yourself, or where do you see yourself after 5 years? Such questions, do we really need to prepare them prior to the interview, or we should go with a relaxed mind and speak whatever comes to the mind at that time, at that instant?
I would say this is again a person, like, you need to do a self evaluation. If you
Mhm.
have a problem, like while you're communicating, you tend to fumble a lot, or you do not know what to express or what to say, then it is a good idea to practice a little bit. But otherwise, if you are good with your communication skills and you can put up what you're thinking correctly in front of the interviewer, and they do not expect you to use a very good kind of a vocabulary out there. What they expect is simple English and your ability to convey your thoughts properly with clarity. So as long as you're able to do that, there's no point for you to invest a lot of time preparing HR interview questions. Secondly, do not try and mug up questions and speak like a bot. Instead, it should give an impression that you're actually thinking it out and be natural about it. But yeah, definitely the standard HR questions you should have,
Some
clear,
idea.
yeah, some idea and clarity in your concepts. Like, you should know what is your strength. It shouldn't be the fact that, I'll go in the HR interview and I'll speak whatever I would like to, you know, at least have some idea what is your strength, and have at least 2 to 3 strengths in your mind, so that if the interviewer wants to drill you on that particular question, then you have something to speak of. So be natural, and most importantly, be open minded, because HR interviewers do not want somebody who's speaking out a monotonous and robotic kind of an answer. They
Yeah,
want they want to explore your personality in general. So leave it to the interview then and there. Just have clarity in your concepts and what you are as an individual.
okay. So the next question is, apart from a good aptitude, coding, and a good personality, of course, do what else do the companies expect an individual to be? Like, what I believe is they definitely expect that individual should be technologically sound, updated with all the technologies that are there existing in the world. So how do you keep yourself updated with the technology? Like, you are in ACM, so you might be receiving bulletins from there. And what else do you use to keep yourself updated about the latest inventions all around the world?
That actually is a very good question because I'll tell you what, in one of my interviews, like, I had a basic introduction and then my interview jumped right into cloud computing
Okay.
because the company that I was interviewing with was a cloud computing based firm. And, I had nowhere mentioned anywhere in my resume that I, know or am familiar with cloud computing. Nowhere had I mentioned it on my LinkedIn or any other profiles for that matter that I have cloud computing background. And I actually did not have a cloud computing background. So now that I was asked cloud computing related questions, so I had idea what cloud computing was. I had idea what the technical terms in cloud computing actually mean. Like when we talk about virtualization, what does virtualization mean? And what is the significance of virtualization and how is it, being applied and how are we actually making use of it? So I think reading blogs, technical blogs on Medium is extremely important. So if at any point of time, any of your fellow connections on LinkedIn put up a blog post,
We
do
should
not
go.
just do not just leave a like over there or celebrate it, but instead actually go visit that link, read it out, because at least you would retain some part of it. And if at all they have used some pictures, then try and keep those pictures, diagrams, flowcharts in your mind. Secondly, I would say Twitter is a very good platform. Like Twitter, the dev community, the tech community, it's extremely good. People are on and off sharing something or the other on a daily basis. And it's a very open community. So you would get a lot of material over there. I personally found a lot of blogs over there, a lot of insights over there. And often yeah, they used to put up links to their work as well. So Twitter is a wonderful place to find out work. Then I would say read Dev2 blogs as well. They have amazing content. Like I would say the actual developers out there are putting their content over Dev2. So that's another place that you should check out if you're looking out for. And having an understanding of all the fields out there helps you actually explain it. You can always tell them that you are not working on this technology, but you should actually have an idea. Because in my interviews with Walmart and VMware, I remember, you know, that they had asked me questions related to different fields out there. So, you should take that into account. You should have an idea what is AR, what is VR, what is XR, what is cloud computing. You should have an idea. That is important. So, you should invest time in that.
Okay, so we should keep on reading the stuff provided on LinkedIn rather than just scrolling it out like
Yeah, yeah,
Instagram.
yeah.
Okay. So now we have got a lot of tips from you, and I guess this will definitely help me save my time. And anyone who views this recording, it will help them save their time as well. So at the end, so I would like to know any message which you want to give to your juniors who are going to face such interviews in upcoming years. So
Yeah,
anything which we missed on, and you think that is really important, so you can share it.
I think firstly, most importantly, you know, you will get a lot of companies on campus. But having said that, do not try and self reject yourself, try and apply off campus, because two of the major companies that I cracked are off campus and not on campus. So go out and appear for companies off campus. It is not that difficult as long as you know your stuff, you would be able to crack off campus as well. It is not that difficult. Do not self reject. Secondly, on campus as well, when you're getting companies with lower packages, do not reject those companies and not sit for them. Instead, sit for the smallest of the companies that you are eligible to sit for. Take that offer, because having an offer earlier in the placement season helps you build your morale and confidence. Like, later on you might not join that company, that's completely fine, but having an offer
Mhm.
gives you a mental edge. Like, when you're sitting for the next company,
Definitely.
at least you have something in your hand. Third point is that whenever you're appearing for an interview, do not take it as an interview, like take it as a mock. This personally helped me, because if I were to take it as an interview, I would have been extremely nervous. So any of the companies that I sat for, I took it as a mock. It helped me be myself rather than be
Yeah,
worried about being talking to people, because the interviewers that you're interacting with, they are extremely experienced and they know much more than you can even think of. So, there's always going to be this gap between you and the interviewer. So, you need to stay and be who you are. And that comes only when you are not nervous. And I've thought that if I take it as a mock interview, that, this is not going to affect me in any way and I can be my relaxed self, then this is not going to affect my performance and I'll be myself. So,
yeah,
that is.
that is one of the reason that many of the people are like getting nervous and end up losing that job, which they
Yeah.
might be actually capable of getting that job, or they deserve that job, but only due to the nervousness at the time of interview they lose the opportunity.
Yeah, and most importantly, if you're sitting for a company, they want to hire you, they do not want to reject you. So
Yeah,
they are looking out for a reason to hire you. Give them that reason, be yourself, be honest. And secondly, when you're not nervous, when you do not have this fear at the back of your mind that what if they reject me, then you perform better. If they were to reject you, they would anyways reject you, no? So let's better be ourselves and confident and leave it to them to accept or reject us or select us. Let's not do that part which is not ours. Let's just focus on what we are supposed to do.
definitely. I really like this that they are looking for a reason to hire you, and we should focus on providing that reason rather than
Yeah,
thinking what are they judging us, how are they judging us, and everything.
exactly.
Okay, so any more point from your side which you think can help us?
I think focus on coding. Do not, like, be very worried. Do not get frustrated. Okay, try and keep calm. And if at any point of time you require help, reach out to people, because there are a lot of people out there in the community who are going to be willing to help you out with your queries and your problems. Be open minded, grab all the opportunities that you get your hands on, and make the most of it. And utilize your time effectively and enjoy as well. Like, it's not something that you need to be studying all the time. It is not difficult. Enjoy your time, pursue your hobbies along with whatever you're doing. Have a
Hmm.
life. That's important.
Right, right. So we have like got so many key points from you, which are like pro tips we can say. So definitely this will help anyone during the preparation for their placements, and not even during the preparation of placement, but throughout the BTech, it will definitely help the one anyone to save their time and utilize it effectively.
Sure.
So, thank you so much for joining us in this interview. This is surely going to be helpful. And thank you so much for taking out your time.
Thank you, Shatakshi and Nursery Devarsky, for having me.
So, this was a bit about her journey from starting her BTech to getting placed. Hope you will find some useful insights out of her experience, which will help you during your placement journey. Now, in upcoming videos, we'll talk to more such people and know their stories. How did they made it from their campus to corporate? So stay tuned and follow Nursery to Varsity on its social media handles to get the regular updates. You can find the links given in description below. So see you in the next video. Thank you.